Smithfield Town Council, May 4th, 2020 is called to order at 6:52 p.m. First item is a prayer and a pledge. Madam Clerk.
Lord, assist with thy Holy Spirit of counsel all of those who are serving in positions of authority and responsibility. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Vadenais? Here. Mrs. O'Hara?
As we know, she's experiencing technical difficulties. She tried to sign on through Zoom and tried to call in, but she'll be joining us.
Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Mr. Zwolinski?
Present.
Mr. Vadenais?
Here. Next item is the open forum pursuant to Public Law 42-46-6D, the maximum of 15 minutes. Is there anybody out there wishing to speak under the open forum?
I would.
Could you just state your name and your address for the record, please?
Mike Clifford, 489. I just wanted to ask if you would consider, I saw the budget on the town website, and I understand that the administrator is recommending that the salary for the town administrator's position be increased. It's a substantial increase, and I understand the rationale for doing that. It's been talked about many times about maybe you can attract more candidates if the salary is higher, but I would like the council to consider putting it on the next council meeting agenda for a discussion. It'd be nice if the community and the residents out there knew that that salary was going to be increased before they made a decision as to whether they were going to run for that position or not. At the lower salary, there may be less interest. At the higher salary, there might be. And I mention this because in 2018, when you voted to increase, when the former committee voted to increase the stipends for the council members, they did it at the budget meeting on June 25th. And the declaration period for running for office ended on June 27th. And the notice that the salary had gone up wasn't even in the paper until the 28th. The day after filing deadline for declaration. So it doesn't do any good if you're going to raise the salary on the, at the budget committee meeting when you're approving the budget late in June. It'll be too little too late. I wish you'd say what the amount is that you're going to approve now at your next meeting and get it out there in the community, and maybe we can have multiple candidates for multiple offices.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under the open forum? Is there anyone else? Ms. Scott?
I see nobody in the chat. I see nobody raising their hands or anything, so I'm going to have to say no.
Okay. Next item, North Smithfield Town Council sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. Discussion by council vote or other action on holiday license for Harris Brothers Incorporated doing business as Sam's Food Store located at 948 Eddie Dowling Highway. Everybody should have the application for the business license. Everything has been checked off and approved by the zoning and building official, the fire marshal, and the tax collector. Is there a motion at this time to approve?
Moved, Mr. President.
Motion by Mrs. Zwolinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Are
Mrs.
you, Mrs.
Vadenais?
There's a motion by Mrs. Zwolinski, seconded by Mrs. Vadenais. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zwolinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. You will contact them in the morning and let them know, and they can process it.
I sure will.
Thank you. Next item, discussion by council vote other action on escrow agreement with High Rocks 2 LLC for property located at 1 Tupperware Drive. I had this put on the agenda at the request of their attorney, Mr. Hurley. And as of late today, he issued another request asking that this be action taken tonight, and we put on the agenda for May 18th. So, and I've talked to the solicitor, and he recommends that we do the same, and you will be getting an email from the solicitor explaining what's going forward with this. So we will move this to the May 18th meeting. Next item, discussion by council vote other action on request from the zoning board of review regarding corner lot definition change. Mr. Johnson.
Oh, sorry. That was my fault. Okay.
You're still muted.
He's muted.
I know you gotta. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. Over the last, as you see, this was back in February 29th, but this was an ongoing thing between the zoning board over the previous few months. As you know, that we've had several cases come before the zoning board that caused some confusion with both the applicant and the board members. So as we did some research, the first one that I'm discussing right now is for corner lots. There is a diagram in the current zoning ordinance, and there's an explanation in the ordinance itself, but it actually doesn't get into what dimensional regulations are. So I went through and looked at several communities and came up with a corner lot definition along with the dimensional regulations for a corner lot. All this is a request to send it to the planning board for their review and to see if they agree with it, or if we could develop an ordinance to revise the zoning ordinance and change the requirements for a corner lot.
So this would need to go before the planning board
Correct.
to get their recommendation, even though it's the zoning board that's having an issue with it.
Correct, yes.
But for consistency with the comp plan, is Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to refer it to the planning board to review, excuse me, and possible amendments to the language. That's a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Zelinski to the planning board a request to review the corner lot zoning ordinance.
Yes, and possible amendment to the language.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ogier.
I'm not on this. How's going on?
Mrs. O'Hara
Claire.
has joined. Mrs.
All right,
O'Hara
I'm
has
here.
joined the meeting. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Next item, discussion by council vote or other action on request from the zoning board of review regarding clarification of section 6.19 water supply overlay district. Johnson?
Yes, the second request from the zoning board is regarding over the last 6 months or so, we had an application that, again, caused a significant amount of confusion between the zoning board and the applicant's attorneys. It became very difficult, causing the applicant to go back and forth between the zoning board and the planning board to get clarification whether or not the property was within the aquifer. I know the applicant did have an independent engineer look at the whether or not it was in an aquifer. This was just a request from the zoning board to ask the planning board to review, either review or maybe develop a better map that better delineates what's actually in the aquifer zone and what's in the watershed area, and where it would require an extra special use permit. That's it.
Is there a motion to seek the opinion and an updating by the planning board on the water supply protection overlay district?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bottomoli. Is there a second? second by Mr. Zelinski, but he's muted again.
I don't-
Are you muting him or is he muting himself?
No, he's muting himself. I'm
Oh.
getting him unmuted though. There we go.
Not
He's
bad.
good.
Not me.
But he's back now, but you do have a second by you. Under discussion, Tom, is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. We were looking at amending that ordinance anyway, so it'll be nice to take a look at it. I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have one quick question. I don't know if maybe it's to Tom or CJ, but will this look to expand upon the aquifer zone, or is it just kind of the figuring out where the boundaries are?
Actually, I can take that. If anything, we want to look to try to restrict it just a little bit within the existing industrial areas, which there's already buildings there. If we have some applications actually like to do in addition to an existing building in the manufacturing district, situations like that, we've actually relaxed some portions of the aquifer overlay, so that's what we'd like to explore. These are also areas in town that are already impacted and undergoing remediation.
So in essence, we're trying to redefine those areas and
Yeah.
show exactly what lots are in them and what lots are not.
Yeah,
Better definition.
you want to sharpen it up and actually allow the town to derive more revenue, hopefully, subsidize the residential tax base, and maybe even purchase more open space. I mean, that's really what we want to do here. The other thing, and I had Bobby already looking at this, we want to adjust the map, the graphics of the map to make it more clear as to which properties are in and which are out.
I think that's an important part of it too. Really.
Mr. President, I just want to caution everyone here that it's called the Water Supply Protection Overlay District for a reason. And I certainly want to protect our overlay areas. I'm not so much enthralled with the idea of generating revenue in a water protection overlay district, but that's going to be up for the planning board to deliberate over and send it back to us for our vote.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenay?
Yes. Next is discussion by council vote or other action on request from the zoning board of review regarding review of section 5.4 use table regulations review. Mr. Johnson.
The final one I have for you this evening, the zoning board whose chairman, who served as well as I did for a short time, and also Councilman Zelinski, all served on the zoning ordinance review committee. They did a lot of work on this, the use table, and they came up with some suggestions. I have spoken to Tom regarding this, and I know he's in the process of doing a lot of work on this as well with the new comp plan. So this may be just for a send off to the planning board, just so they can look at the work that was done, and just let them review it, and that may be the only action that's necessary.
Question for you, Carl. The red fonts now, like in particular, I'm on page 5 through 8, and under office uses, 543. Number 4, office construction trailer. There was a special use permit under open space, and now there's a red N. Refresh my memory. Was that from the zoning ordinance ad hoc committee?
Yeah, actually, yeah, everything that's in red was done with the ad hoc committee.
Okay, then I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Is there a motion to forward to the planning board for review section 5.4 use table regulations?
So moved, Mr. President.
Motion by Mrs. Zelinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ogier. Under discussion. Mr. Johnson, when you sent this to us, there was a couple pages, 5-10, 5-11, where there's red notes in the columns and the borders and whatnot. You can't read them all.
Yeah, I'm just noticing
What they completely say.
Yeah, I think that's just that was lost in the translation. I will get a fresh copy off to the council and off to Mr. Kravitz.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Roll
No,
call,
I'm all set. Thank you.
roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Next item, discussion by council vote or other action on studies and future use of Hallowell property. Mrs. Walensky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everybody that's on this Zoom meeting this evening attended that March 7th meeting at Hallowell, where we discussed possible uses for the 32 acres of property over there. There were roughly 50 people in attendance, and we had a tremendous amount of brainstorming took place with a lot of ideas. One thing that was thematic, though, is that I don't think there was a person in attendance that supported or certainly no one promoted the idea of selling the property. So most people agreed it should be kept in perpetuity in town possession and to use for multiple purpose location. I know I'm going to forget some of the people as I try to recall who was there, but I think it leads credence to what we're attempting to do from that meeting. It was Tony Girton that said, let's make sure that the whole town has a say in this. Linda Thibault, Claire O'Hara were champion for senior services over there, and that was pretty unanimous. Everybody supported that. I think Claire also went on to say that in the future, possible location for library and police services as well. I think it was Alexandra, I'm going to say her first name, Alexandra Norton promoted possible incubation spaces over there, meeting halls, and she expressed some concern that the youth in town don't really have places to go and have fun. I know there was a young man there that spoke about having a skateboard park. So we got a lot of different input. And then, of course, the big question about how are we going to pay for this? John Beauregard, Council President Beauregard, previous Council President Beauregard, reminded us that the solar revenue could be used to pay for whatever improvements are done on that property. So kind of in closing, and I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but it was Bill Nangle that said that we should have we should perform a town-wide survey. Now that kind of leads me into why I asked for this to be put on the agenda. I'd like to ask that all interested parties, I know people are tired of hearing about committees and volunteers. There was a lot of passion in that meeting Saturday. A lot of people could certainly step up. So what I'd like to see happen is a creation of a committee, and I wouldn't set a number to it, for people to come and to express some of those ideas that we heard that Saturday. And that can happen, we can facilitate that, I think, but I'm going to ask Administrator Ozovsky. Gary?
I'm here.
You can hear me? Okay, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to ask Administrator Ozovsky if he can use some of his staff to help facilitate scheduling meetings. Hopefully the COVID-19 pandemic will start to ease. We still will be cognizant of social distancing, and maybe we can start to use our new headquarters over there at Kendall Dean. So in essence, if we could, Gary, if your folks could somehow send out a request to those people at least, make it open, maybe do a press release saying, it's time for us to move forward on this, interested parties contact, and someone could coordinate that stuff so we can get it going. Because right now, it really is an attractive nuisance over there. I'm fearful that something could happen to the properties. We need to get traffic in and out of there. I think that was expressed during the meeting. We should have some activity going on over there. So if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you.
I have a question in relation to this, is that while we're looking at the future use and like you say, we don't want it to become a nuisance that we have over there. Maybe you can recall, because I can't find anything that relates to this, is in the bonds that were passed for the school bonds that were passed, that portion of that money was supposed to be used for the decommissioning of Hallowell. Do you recall how much money?
I don't, but I want to, Gary, I'm not putting you on the hot seat, but I think you did mention that there was not enough money available in the decommission bond. Am I correct in saying that? We didn't have a set figure that day.
Correct. We, right now, I believe it is the school department's perspective that the funds from the bond would be used in these, the different school projects that have been discussed, except for holding $300,000 in reserve for Hallowell. The president and I have actually talked recently about arranging a meeting with the leadership in the school department to talk about that a bit, to try to finalize that number to see where it is. I'll also offer that, and we haven't been successful at that yet, but we hope to meet this week. The other thing that I have proposed in my budget is a funding for a study that was one of the issues, if you recall, Councilman Zawinski, that was a pretty strong recommendation from the group that met that Saturday morning, to engage a professional land planner to be able to analyze the site and identify key areas for the most appropriate use. That is, where I've been going with this at this point, is trying to move forward with what is likely to be some demolition. There are 2 buildings out there that have do not enter signs on them because they are, beyond repair as it relates to mold. Perhaps my thought is to use those as a model for, or at least to get bids to see what the real cost of any demolition down there will be, and to, again, start working on the buildings themselves, to do things to reduce some of the risk, and to try to detail the future to get some professional input, because we can all meet and talk about all of the ideas that we have, but without a land planner to really assess, the acreage, the wetlands, the assets and liabilities of that site, I'm not sure that we're really going to move very far to accomplish an end game.
Gary, that's exactly why I wanted to have this committee established to start looking into those things. I'm glad that you're going to you're always active in everything anyway, but I'm glad that you're already on top of this. One other thing I forgot to mention was Mr. Harris, the Historic Commission, had mentioned something. 62 years of history at Hallowell, the style of the campus itself. He did mention possibility of identifying it as a historic district and possibly seeking grants. So how that weighs in if there's demo going on over there. But it is a very unique campus. So that's something to keep in mind. So all these people that were there Saturday certainly could help. But you're absolutely right, Gary. We would need to have some type of professional surveying done over there, because a lot of that is restricted. Some of it's wetlands. And I'm very familiar with it, right? I think you were talking about it. Excuse me, President Vadenais, you were speaking about it during the meeting. You were extremely familiar with the land back there. So yeah, there's a lot to be done. So if we can just get it started, try to alleviate that attractive nuisance that's going, and give some, again, I want to stipulate that, not stipulate, to suggest that this is not a headlong rush. This is something that can take years, but let's get the process going, see where the revenue stream's going to come from to pay for it, and let's use it for its best purposes that we can, because it is ideally located on 102 with traffic control coming in out of there, the traffic lights. It's just an ideal setup. So that's about it from my end.
If I can add, one of the key points here is that you know, as we will be getting into the budget soon, which is going to be an interesting process because the state is in such a state of, I won't say confusion, but just uncertainty over how the state budget is going to move forward. And that leaves the town in a position, a quandary over how it can move forward. And I won't even voice some of the suggestions made in the municipal leadership meetings that I've taken part in over the past few weeks. I mean, some of them are not fun to even think about. So the budget is going to be a challenge. So I'm intent on finding that a way to fund the planning survey that we need, the planning work that we need, and a part of my want to meet with the school committee is to make sure that the school committee leadership is to make sure that we know where we are with the residual from the bond after they have completed all of the work with the addition at NSCS, now that they're done with the renovations of the labs, and they have a plan for the renovation of the locker rooms. I want to make sure that we optimize what we have left there so that perhaps instead of having the funding for the study of Hallowell coming out of next year's budget, it actually comes out of the bond as a source. Naturally, the council's decision, not mine, but one of the options, because this budget is going to be a real struggle.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes, Mr. Zalsky, first of all, I think the planner must come first and foremost. It's like talking to a wall unless we know what we have to work with. Number two, the amount that was put aside for Hallowell was a good figure. And once they just abandoned, and I mean abandoned, that property, that money should have stayed in a fund just for Hallowell, because that's what it was meant for.
Well, money has been, none of the money has been inappropriately used, or I don't know what the right words. The money's been managed properly, I believe. The question or the challenge is just how much of it goes into eliminating the past versus creating the future. And we have to get that nailed down. That we've had estimates as to what it would cost to demolish those buildings that go from small numbers to over $1 million. I don't know what to trust. We need to take some actions. So that's what I'm hoping to do. First, to nail down what we believe we will have remaining from the bond funds, make a decision as to make a proposal to the council as to how we manage that, potentially using some of that for the studies, get that moving right away, and to go forward with a bid process to at least demolish 2 of those buildings and perhaps use that as a better cost estimator as to what happens with the others in the future. To if we are going to take them down, here's what they cost per building. They're all pretty much the same, as you recall. So I think it's the way forward. I'm certainly interested in maintaining the community interest, Councilman Zelinski, and look forward to trying to put this together into a solid plan in the coming week, 2 to 3 weeks, I would say.
Thank you, Gary. You always do. Again, I'd just like to re-mention that there are options for revenue. Again, if there's bond money remaining, maybe we go that way, or maybe we look at any of the renewable energy revenue that we're going to be receiving. So yeah, there's options. Gary, thank you for the detail.
You're welcome.
Anyone else with anything?
Okay,
Just
President.
basically, are we going to be updated on when, how this is going to start? Gary, it comes to you.
With a solid number from what is to be available from the bond, so that we can make a plan from there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Ogier?
Yeah, I don't know if it maybe relates to this conversation or if it's going to spill over into another conversation, but I just heard Councilman Zawinski talk about revenue from solar, and I know we've talked about or tried to talk about how that money is going to be spent. Is it ideal to, or is there a way that we can find out what the anticipated revenues of solar are going to be over like the next 3 to 5 years? Some of these projects are going to start to be coming online, and I'm assuming we must have an idea of how much we're going to get paid. I know that it will change if more solar comes on, but I think that will be an important component to know how much money we're actually going to be receiving to not say, all right, it's going to cover everything and then find out it's short. I think it's another element, the revenue streams that goes into this whole planning. And personally, I think some of that money should go towards open space, but yeah.
That was the intent, Council Ozier, was open space. But I think that under the Halliwell property, we could consider that open space with some passive recreation over there as well. So, yeah, it lends itself. Those revenues, whatever the forecast would be, that could be used for this as well as acquiring more open space.
I agree 100%. I think there's passive rec over there. I was just curious as to what we're looking at in terms of revenue over the coming years, at least if it's a projection. I think that info would be really helpful.
Agreed.
We will work on it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Next agenda item, discussion by council vote or other action on resolution in support of moving the primary election to Wednesday. I had this put on at the clerk's request. Most other communities in the state have put a resolution forward in support of House Bill 7430, House Bill 7480, and Senate Bill 2285, acts relating to elections about moving primary dates because where the primaries would fall in certain years, it's going to create a hardship. It's been reviewed by David, the solicitor. It's pretty much the same thing that every other community has put out there to the General Assembly, seeking their support to change those election dates. So with that, I'd make the motion that we approve the resolution in support of those bills for primary election dates.
Second for discussion, Mr. President.
Second by Mrs. Zelinski for discussion. Mrs. Zelinski.
If you look at the first paragraph, next to the last line at the end, to be held on this, and on my hard copy, I can't, nor could I do what it was on my laptop either. So, second Tuesday.
I'm not sure what that is supposed to be.
Yeah, you know what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah, where it says S with the exclamation point and the open quotation marks. Ms. Scott, you got any insight into that?
No.
I'm
Dave
okay
wrote it, though.
with it. I just, whatever the typo is, straighten it out.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I
David,
think
you know what that is?
I think it's just a typo. It's supposed to say second.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
It's supposed to be second Tuesday
Okay.
seating, right?
Okay.
Any other discussion? Just under the discussion, if we do approve this, we will have to make a point to get to the clerk's office to sign the resolution.
What I'd like to do is just submit the, Mr. President, can I just have I'll submit the corrected typo to the clerk.
Yep.
I can do that tonight and you'll have a clean copy. So just approve it with the proper typo.
Yep.
I'm looking at it right now. And I'll do that as well.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on it? The motion in a second. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Like I said, everyone will have to go to the clerk's office. I believe there might be something else in there that we have to sign to. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll have to stop in the next few days to sign this if we can. We'll have to knock at the door, correct? No.
Yeah, just give me a call and I'll bring it to the police station lobby.
Okay, thank you. Next item, discussion by council vote of other action on building bond, industrial communications invoice 1061439, the amount of $52,340. If everybody remembers correctly, this was something that was recommended by the task force and approved by the council. Originally, it was a 60-foot tower, and then they made a change order to go to an 80-foot tower, which the change order was approved by the council previously. This is the invoice for it. All work has been done. They were a great company to have work done by. They were professional, on time, kept the site clean. Very good work. Any questions? We had any issues? They came right down and corrected them all. Peter has approved all of his antenna placements, and the fencing has been put up around it and everything. So it's a complete project. I think they were a really good company to work for. I think Gary would agree with me on that. Gary kind of really ran with this. This was, once we approved it, he followed through on everything with it, so.
It went very well. I think it's a good product that will serve the town for a long time.
There a motion to approve?
So
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Walensky, seconded by Mrs. O'Hara and Mrs. Bonamioli. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Rozier?
Yes.
Mrs. Walensky?
yes,
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Next item is discussion by council vote or other action on scheduling a public hearing for the IBPO contract. You should have a packet of information. It has a cover letter from the budget committee. They have reviewed it as per charter. The next step in this is to have a public hearing. So it's before us to set a date for the public hearing. Do we want to set the public hearing for May 18th? It's up to the council. We could set that for the 18th if suits everyone's pleasure.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zelinski.
I know you're not clairvoyant, and you don't have a crystal ball, but this is the type of thing that if we could start to use the Kendall D, pays a retro anyway. I would like to see this done in the public with proper social distancing taking place. Doing it online like this, I don't know if it's cumbersome or most people can participate. Not everybody has access to a computer, or maybe some folks don't want to call in. Maybe they want to attend. Is this something we could put off? And I don't mean put it off. That's a poor choice of words.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm saying wait and see, and I'm kind of in agreement with you on this, that where these virtual meetings are okay, they work to get what we need to get done. I'm hoping that when the 18th comes around, that a lot of these restrictions may be lessened, that we can get back to having physical meetings. And then, yeah, these public hearings are going to be a lot easier to accomplish.
Yeah, because after the 18th,
Doing the budget in this format
cycle.
could really become a real bear. This could become something like that, so.
Yeah, Will and I toward the budget cycle, so I'm okay with that date as long as maybe we could. What are we going to do? It's something beyond our control.
Mr. President, I have to ask that we not delay. I mean, we do need to make decisions ahead of the budget. We need to know where we're going with this contract as a function of that process. I understand the concern. Communities are dealing with the same thing all over the state, and I have to suggest that we are, going to have to play the game with the cards that we have on the table as it relates to the mechanism. We need to get into this contract as quickly as possible so that if there are any questions that, the council has, that they can be rooted out and known as we go forward into the budget process. We don't have a lot of time.
It's the public aspect of public input. Yeah, let's see what we can do.
I agree. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lifting of the meeting quantities, the number of people who are allowed in a meeting in a timeline that's going to be fast enough to make a difference with this councilman. I think we're going to, at best, we're going to be moving from a 5 to a 10 over the next few weeks. That's my best guess. And I think actually, well, we'll have to see. I think we're going to be dealing with this for a long time. These conditions, I mean.
Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing on the 18th of May then?
I'll make that motion, Mr. President. Yes.
Motion by Mrs. Zelinski, seconded by Mrs. Carnioli. And with that under discussion, once we do approve this, I'll ask the clerk to place the contract on the town's website so that everybody will be able to review it. Anyone in the town will be able to review it. We'll let them know that it's there.
It's actually already on the website at the top of the agenda. If they follow that link, that's there. But we will put it somewhere easier to locate as well.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Next is discussion by council vote other action on Moody's annual comment report on the town of North Smithfield. Mr. Izowski.
Everyone, I hope, has had a chance to be able to look through this. It is the annual report that is provided based on the town's audit and its internal financial information. I think is all very good news. The things that we have control over are either improved or stabilized, or stable, I should say. As you can see on the third page, the column to the right identifies 9 different parameters that are important to our overall bond quality perspective. As of this week, or as of the time that this was written, I should say, our economic condition and tax base was improved. And, I think it's good that they compare to the US median. And obviously they show us a few years into the past and how that has changed. So our base has grown, which is good. We are somewhat behind the US median, which maybe is good in many ways. We want to be a smaller town. We're not trying to be a big city. The median family income, as identified by the Moody's team, is 144%, as compared to the US median, which they stated at 111%. So we're not the Rockefellers by any stretch as a family, but we're also a family that's in pretty good shape as it relates to our national family members. On the finance side, our fund balance obviously has changed substantially. From 2015 to 2019, it has almost doubled. The number that is there, the 19.2%, is a different calculation than the one that we use to establish compliance with the ordinance. Currently, the numbers as it pertains to the ordinance, we are at 14%, right in the middle of the 12 to 16% target that we set in establishing the ordinance. As on the other hand, in the way that Moody's calculates the numbers, as you can see, as compared to the national median, we're still well behind. Do we need to chase that median? No. We're in good shape as we are, and I think it's good that we are in the shape that we're in with what is about to hit us in the next few months with the upcoming budget. Our net cash balance as a percentage of operating revenues also is much stronger than it was 4 or 5 years ago. but still not, rivaling the national median, but okay. Our debt position has improved. Those numbers you want to see go down. Our peak was in 2016. We're now we went from 2.5% to 1.9%, and that is with the current or the most recent. That's we don't have the school bond, the municipal building bond. Both of those bonds are considered there. Our net direct debt to operating revenues, again, we stand well versus the national median and improved from 4 or 5 years ago, with the peak being in 2016. Our net pension liability, on the other hand, is the one area where we have weakened. And since we are entirely in the MERS, municipal employees retirement system, that is a function of something that we don't control. That's a state decision. The opinion of our financial consultant is that that is likely a function of the change in the estimated return on investment that was made not that long ago, or in the not distant past, that causes the overall MERS system to have weakened a bit. Nonetheless, we don't carry any of the burdens that many of our fellow Rhode Island city and towns have with local plans are miserably unfunded or poorly funded. We are just totally involved. All of our pensions are driven by the state plan currently. If you go down further, there's more detail on the debt and financial data. The one that I will, though the fund balance numbers pretty much just repeat what you saw up top. The net direct debt, I want to point out again, in 2016, that number was just under $38 million. We're now down to just over $30 million. That's a substantial reduction, and that goes to what happens every year, where we pay down almost or just about $3 million in debt principal. So the town has, I think, done very well over the past 5 years to change its debt burden as well as its cash position. That I just wanted to go through that. I think it's fortunate that our Moody's report comes back looking like that, because I have to tell you that from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing as it relates to the state budget, we're going to be considering some things in our town budget that we probably haven't considered in decades. So it is, the circumstance that we're in. We'll have to be very careful about what we do. I don't want to see all of the good work that we've done evaporate. In some of the meetings that we've had, the budget committee has commented that, we set ourselves up for a rainy day. Chances are the middle of this year, it's going to rain pretty hard. It's, unfortunately, a very somber forecast after a very, very good financial review. It's just, we are in for an interesting middle of the year. I don't know if there's any questions, it's all FYI.
Any questions of the administrator or finance director?
Mr. President, I have a question.
So, yeah.
Or maybe it's like 2 quick questions. So I know that this was written before really COVID-19 took off, and everything is looking stable at the time that this report was written. But is there any indication that what the revenue will look like next year? I know we'll probably have this conversation towards the budget, but are we anticipating any type of significant drop off that in the coming months? And then my other quick question. Oh, sorry. And then my other quick question was. Okay, yeah. And then my other quick question was the debt. I know that this, you said, was including the school and municipal building bonds, but are we anticipating what are we anticipating to go down again next year in terms of our debt? We're not looking to take out any substantial, no substantial increases looking to come, I guess is what I'm saying. Like how it did last year where we had a little bit of uptick. Will we be anticipating a downtick?
Well, no bond proposals are currently on the table that I'm aware of. And as I said in the report, we are fully with all of the obligations. This report is fully loaded with all of our current obligations. Does that answer your question, Councilman?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. That's all. Make sure I understood correctly.
Is there a motion to accept and place on file?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Zelinski made the motion,
Yes.
and Mrs. Vadenais seconds. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mrs. Walensky?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenay?
Yes. Next item, discussion by council vote or other action to add vital record online services to the town clerk's office. Ms. Scott.
So this is simply putting vital record requests online. It is at no cost to the town. The cost is actually on the resident if they want to do this process online versus doing it through the mail or coming into the office. I believe it's a $5 charge to them if they want to do so, but it gives them the option, especially if they're out of state, that the request comes in right away and we can process it.
So we need to enter into an agreement
Yeah.
with.
So we need authorization for Mr. Zofsky to sign so that we can enter into the agreement, but it is at no cost to the town at all.
Right. But
And
it
it is
mentions,
through the state.
when it discusses a fee schedule, that's a fee schedule that people accessing the records would deal with, not what we pay. And normally
Correct.
they would pay that fee anyways, even if they came into your office, correct?
So if they walk in, it's $22. If they mail in, it's $25. I believe if they do it online, it's $30
Because they got to pay the $5 to get it sent to them.
because it's a credit card fee. So they're paying the fee to use a credit card.
So there's no cost for us.
No cost to the town whatsoever.
There's a benefit to you that you're not, a lot of
A
this,
benefit to me and the resident, because like I said, if you're out of state, you don't have to wait the extra 3 days for me to get it, then process it, then to mail it back. You can do it right online. As soon as we get it, we process it and send it out.
and what's driving this is the new ID, voter ID that goes with your license. That's what's
We've
driving.
had a lot of requests. Yeah. And this will be for births, marriages, and deaths. It's not just
Yeah.
births.
Another step.
To,
Mr.
go ahead, Gary.
President, it's another step in the right direction, I believe, to move more and more of our work to the electronic systems. And our clerk has done a great job in making that happen. The idea right now that we can be functioning with the doors locked at the annex is a credit to Lillian and her team for the work that they've done to make most of the work, well, most of the documents that are needed by the public available online. It's another great tool.
is there a motion to approve entering into an agreement state for vital records and authorizing the administrator to sign?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Zelinski. Is there a second?
second,
Second by Mrs. O'Hara. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenay?
Yes. Next item, discussion by council vote or other action on invoice number E524759 from EnviroClean Inc. Mr. Zofsky.
Members of the council, this is work that we engaged a services firm to step up our cleaning of all of the public buildings. this invoice plus another that will be coming to us soon, that'll be the final one, at least I hope for the time being, was to arrange for a full disinfection treatment of Town Hall, the annex, including the police station, the two fire stations, and the DPW. The invoice for the DPW is a smaller one that will be coming. Haven't received that one yet. As we've been encouraged to make sure, in our homes, everywhere we go, the whole wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, has also been an advocacy for clean, clean, clean. The DPW personnel have stepped up to be in our buildings every day to clean surfaces. We've also engaged an outside firm to come in twice a week to clean, to do floors, and also to do some of the same things. And then this initiative was the one. We may end up having to repeat it as time goes on. We've been very fortunate that thus far we have not had any impact by the virus among our staffs. And it's all an effort to try to continue it that way. Recommend your approval. It is not something that I did get multiple, I pursued multiple proposals. I took action to make this happen out of concern for protection of the staffs.
You've heard the recommendation of the administrator. Is there a motion to approve the invoice from EnviroClean Inc. in the amount of $4,800?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Zelinski. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. O'Hara. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes. Next item, discussion by
Thank
council
you.
for action on up to $1.4 million for drinking water state revolving fund loan for water line extension. Mr. Uzovsky.
We finally are at a point where all of the actions that needed to be taken by health, and the infrastructure bank have resulted in the documents before you, where the board of directors at the infrastructure bank has approved the adjustment in the loan that had been previously granted to us. As you can see, it is now a total of $1.4 million that they will be loaning to the town for the extension of this water line under the Slatersville Water Company, with $850,000 of that $1.4 million being forgiven, provided that we make the regular payments on the $550,000 that we are obligated to pay in a timely fashion over the 20-year term. I think we've been through this. This is the I don't want to say the formality, it's a very important step, but it is now, I'm looking for the, to be able to sign the commitment letter and to move forward with the financing. And with that, with approval on this, I will also, the next item will be to ask to be able to sign the contract with the contractor to go forward with the line extension.
Okay, so right now we have a letter addressed to the administrator from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank stating just that the town of North Smithfield will have an amount not to exceed $1.4 million for a term not to exceed 20 years, and the bank shall forgive up to $850,000 of the loan. Is there a motion to approve and authorize the administrator to sign? Motion by Mrs. O'Hara. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Zelinski. Discussion? Just one question, and I don't know if we went over this. I know that this is a general obligation bond that's out there, but will it be the actual homeowners that tie into the water line that are going to be paying that back, or is it just going to be the town?
It'll be the Slatersville Water Company water users.
Okay.
So I believe we have about 600 customers in the Slatersville Water Company. Those being, in pretty much the northern end of the town. Slatersville branch through Branch Village, Forestdale, Branch Village, up into the Benton Road area, and then across the industrial park. It'll be that user base that will pay back this debt obligation, and that is being built into the water rate for next year.
And then like we mentioned at the last meeting, there's a potential that we find out who polluted those wells and we seek remediation from them to help offset this cost as well.
Oh, I would hope that what we would do in the long term is look for all of this cost to be paid by that company, or that company, that individual, whatever the circumstance it might be.
Any other questions? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion by council vote of action on approval.
Excuse me, Mr. President. I had a little distraction noise in the background. Did we authorize for signature?
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
The motion was to approve it and
Thank
authorize
you.
for signature.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion by council vote wait a minute.
You're on item M.
Yeah, okay. Discussion by council vote other action to approve a contract with Boyle and Fogarty Inc. for the extension of the Mechanic Street water line. Mr. Zalowski.
There's a lot of paper here. It's not the way I chose to organize this. The engineer that has done is the orchestrator of these documents, and it's all good. It's following an engineering standard, but essentially this is the contract that was included in the bid, the RFP that was answered back in February. On February 13th, we received bids from, I believe it was 5 companies, with Boyle and Fogarty being the lowest. And the document that was in that bid packet has been completed and filled out. It is essentially the form that in the form that is before you. It's again a unit price contract that is based on the engineer's estimate for lineal feet of pipe and for cubic yardage of excavation and so on. It's a complicated document, but I believe it represents I firmly believe it represents what we need to do. And I look forward to your, hopefully, your approval and and granting authorization for me to sign. We had gone through the numbers on this at a prior meeting. We will be stretched with this. In fact, this whole process will require that the road repaving, the final paving, the patching of the road is being managed by this contract and the water users. The final repaving will be done with monies that have been set aside from the road reconstruction program. Old Great Road was one of those roads that was to be resurfaced and will be in this process. It is actually going to take a little bit of the money that that I hope will be appropriated next year to be able to pay for to completely pay for the paving portion of this project. We will be going forward with authorization of the pipe work with the patch. We will be waiting to go forward with the paving until after the 2021 budget has been set.
You've heard the recommendation of the administrator. Is there a motion to approve the contract with Boyle and Fogarty for the extension of Mechanic Street water line and authorize the administrator for signing and approval of any and all documents required to approve and complete the contract.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. O'Hara. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bottomoli. Just for clarification, guys, so that there's no misunderstandings. We're not including any ad alternates in this project at this time.
That's correct.
We
Just
haven't added any.
contract.
So the actual contract is for $1,198,473.
That's the base, yes.
That's the base bid. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is discussion by council vote or other action to engage Escrow of New England LLC under Rhode Island Master Pricing Agreement for movement of files and equipment to 80 Green Street from existing buildings. Mr. Zowski.
Finally think we're at a point where we can move. I have to tell you that I don't know who it was that I was talking with last week or so, that I don't know if any of you recall the old riddle about the challenge of trying to get chickens and foxes across a river. And you can only take so many at one time, and you can't leave a chicken and a fox together alone on either side of the river. That's what this has been like. Trying to get to a point where we can actually say, yes, here's how we're going to get it done. We have, we had plans of trying to use our DPW. We had thoughts of, everything being done with our internal IT. And when you start to look at the reality of what this all means, we can't do all that we would like to do with our internal staff over a weekend. It just is physically impossible. Escrow is a company that DPW, Ray Pendergast pursued through through the MPA, Rhode Island MPA list. I have met with Bob Mullen from Escrow. He has provided some options to us. Based on these options, I would ask for your authority to spend up to $8,248 for option number 2. Plus materials that are needed. And frankly, I can't give you a number for that, but those should be incidental to the total amount of the contract, however. But I need approval to move forward and authorization to sign. We, at this point, with the other contract that I have proposed with Vertical 6 for our IT move, I'm working on a schedule that would have us move Memorial Day weekend. So the weekend of May 22nd.
Hey, Gary?
Yes.
Gary, if it's on Memorial Day weekend, are we incurring any time and a half fees in this, or?
We will, the difference based on the MPA is very small. The move option 1 is based on it being done on weekdays. That's $8,120.
Yeah.
Option 2 involves weekend work, and that's $8,248. It's only a $2 per hour premium.
It has to be done. Okay, thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
You've heard the recommendation of the administrator to approve Escrow of New England in the amount not to exceed in the amount for option 2 of $48 plus materials for the move, which we don't know exactly what they are right now.
Okay, that's.
And authorize the administrator to sign it. Is there a motion?
Yes, so moved, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Zelinski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bottomoli. Under discussion, Gary, your comparison to that riddle, oversimplifying it, it's much more difficult than the chickens and the foxes. You and I both
Actually,
know that. It was only that easy.
Pages.
I'm still not sure what the fox said.
I'll tell you, this is, I am.
He said, I'll never do that again.
And we do still have money in the bonds for this. Is that where the funds are coming from, Gary? Just so everyone is clear.
Mr. Vadenais, we have done our best to try to protect the bond money by finding, money in any corner that we possibly can here. We'll likewise do that with this, this move. The next contract, not so much. That's a little bit more difficult.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote?
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenay?
Yes. Next item, discussion by council vote, other action to engage Vertical 6 on the Rhode Island MPA for movement of IT resources to 83 Green Street from existing buildings. This is what Mr. Zowski was just mentioning. We do have the paperwork in front of us. And this one, the total value on this one is $34,738.90. It does include equipment as well as engineering and manpower. You have anything else to add, Mr. Zowski?
Yes, the key part here is to have sufficient resources to make sure that we can do this over a short time period and actually be functional. We've had some difficulties. Lillian has had difficulties with, the clerk has had difficulties with email of late. We've had a person here at Town Hall with email challenges of late. Our part-time tech is doing what he can to work on those. It actually is a micro problem, but it's time demanding, and that time unfortunately isn't available to us in this scenario. So, and it's exactly the kind of thing that I fear that I realize or believe we can't let go to chance. We have to have a team of people available to be able to get this equipment moved, get it set up, get it all plugged in, and make sure that it works for as usual on Tuesday morning. And if there is anything that doesn't work on Tuesday morning, that we need people there to be working on it as quickly and efficiently as possible to make that happen. That's what we have here. We're buying the equipment at prices that come through the master price agreement along with the labor side. And I'm confident that this firm's going to be able to make that all happen for us.
With that said, is there a motion to approve and engage Vertical 6 in the amount of $34,738.90 and
so
authorize
moved.
it to sign? Motion by Mrs. O'Hara, second by Mrs. Walensky. Discussion?
Yep, I have a quick question. So it says there's a monthly reoccurring fee. Do we anticipate that going forward? And is that just for the maintenance of everything that was listed above? And then they're not doing anything with like help desk or anything like that. This is just the move, correct?
It's the move. What also happens is that going forward service cost is for a backup, an offsite backup in the cloud that we don't have now, because our backup circumstance now is one building backs up to the other, and we're not off to the cloud because everything's going to be in one building. We can't do that anymore. We have to have a cloud-based backup, and frankly, to assure that our systems are adequately protected from hackers, that is what we need in the long term anyway.
Okay.
We can't take the chance that this will give us that air gap that's advocated, in backup systems today.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Barnamoli?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes,
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenay?
Yes. With that, I thank you all for your time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
Motion by Mrs. O'Hara, second by Mrs. Bottomoli. Call vote.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Thank you all.